Lesson four. So your trip's booked, and if it's not booked right now, it should be ready to be booked. You should have your flight down, your times, your flight number, your layover. If you have one, how long your layover is, your connection status, your hotels. Everything should be chosen. If it's not booked, it should be chosen and scheduled. So now we're going to go through your pre-trip checklist, and this is a big deal for anxiety. So I know a lot of the time when I have my anxiety triggered, it's because of not having something taken care of, right? Incomplete packing, not having all my necessary documents, things like that. So this is a lesson where I do go through quite thoroughly what you're going to want to look at and deal with and obtain before you take your trip. Because you should have about, 4 to 6 months between when you book your trip and when you get ready for your trip. And that is ample time to do everything and anything you need. So we're going to go through all those things right now. Of course, you ain't going nowhere without a passport. That's a big deal. That's your ticket to travel. Like, you don't have a passport, you don't get into a country. They won't even let you leave your country on an international flight without showing a passport. So you have to get that. It's pretty easy to get. I think standard passport, um, you know, duration is about 2 to 3 months right now. You can check. I don't have the link up, but there's an easy way to check on the government website. If you need to get it expedited, you can. I mean, you can get it expedited up to a few days before you leave, and it just costs more and more money. I had a friend who was going to Canada, didn't realize his passport had expired, and he looked at his passport about 10 days before his trip and realized, oh crap, I don't have a valid passport. So he paid about $600 to get his passport to him on time between the 10 days before he left for his trip and when he left. And that's a lot of money. $600 is, that could be your entire flight price. So get your passport as soon as you book your flight. Your flight's booked, check your passport. If you don't have one, then it's obvious, get one. It's, pretty affordable. I think, I can't remember, it's been a while, but maybe $100. You need two passport photos, which you can do for $15 on a number of locations, and then pay for your passport. But that's going to be critical, and the more time you give yourself, the better, right? Don't wait, and then all of a sudden realize you only have 6 weeks left, and then you're frantic about should you do expedited service, should you do standard service delivery. Just do it the minute you book your flight. Make schedule in your calendar, get your passport photos, and then apply for your passport. You can do it at the post office. It's pretty easy to do, so just make sure you get it and get it quick. Travel insurance, I always get travel insurance for any international flight. Obviously, it's insurance. Chances are you won't need it. Hopefully, you don't need it, but it can be a really good sense of security if something goes wrong, if there is a natural disaster, if there is, just a number of things could go wrong. You get in a car accident while you're traveling. I mean, most of these insurance companies have, you can claim lost baggage, your flight gets delayed, your flight gets canceled, they can help you pay for overnight hotels. There's a lot that they can do. Definitely when you get your travel insurance, read through it because there's a lot of nuances, there's a lot of details. And one of the most important ones is like you only have so many days between something happening to claim it before it goes, no longer valid. And if you lose your luggage, you might have 10 days to notify your travel company, your insurance company of your lost baggage, otherwise they won't claim it. So read through it, understand what it will get for you. Most all travel insurance has emergency medical assistance, evacuation, lost luggage, canceled flights, all kinds of stuff. So get travel insurance. Usually it's about $100 a person, $200 if you want really good coverage. But I think ultimately, if you're spending $3,000 on a trip, you're flying internationally, you have travel anxiety, you probably want to spend an extra $100 just for the peace of mind and the sense of security. And then your international driver's license, you can get this at AAA. It's $20, I believe, plus you need photos, so $35 if you don't have photos already. It's good for 1 year. You show them your valid, in this case, U.S. driver's license. Give them the photos, and then they give you an international driving passport. It's good for 100 and something countries. It's good to have. Even if you don't plan on driving, it might be worthwhile for somebody in your group to get it, just in case things pop up. Um, you might just get a whim. When we went to Thailand not long ago, I brought my international driver's permit and had no plans on driving. I didn't want to drive. Driving in Asia can be crazy. But when we went up north into a city called Chiang Mai, where we were sick most of the first week, we were inundated with smog. The pollution, air pollution was bad. It wasn't just traffic pollution, it was also from the farmers burning their fields. And it was just a mess. We were all in a mess. Like the place we stayed, we got an awesome Airbnb with a 360-degree panoramic view on top of an apartment building. It was killer, but it was right next to a highway, and it was kind of in an industrial complex. And what should have been like an amazing, awesome stay was actually kind of stressful and frustrating, and we were sick, and it was we were kind of all on edge. So we said, screw it, let's get a rental car. We drove to a little town called Pai. It was a 3-hour drive. It was an incredibly windy road, 762 turns, driving on the opposite side of the road through festivals. It was nuts. But if I didn't have my IDL, I wouldn't have been able to do that. And ultimately, when it was all said and done, it was one of the best parts of our entire trip. But that whole first week was chaos. But that was, just a way to kind of give us some more flexibility in what we were doing and what we could do. And I didn't plan on using my international driver's permit, but I did, and I think that it's good to have. So these 3 documents, these 3 things you want to start to collect months out: your passport, travel insurance, international driver's license, driving permit. All very useful. Passport's mandatory. The other 2 are optional. I recommend all 3 of them. By now you have your basic and very important documentation. You're weeks out, maybe you're 4 to 8 weeks out. You're getting pretty close. Depending on your living conditions, whatever, you have a house or you have an apartment, you have roommates, you have kids, you have a spouse, I don't know, whatever your situation may be. You probably need someone to watch your house for you. If you have, kids, obviously that's a whole different ballgame. It's up to you. If you have pets, also obviously it makes traveling harder. I don't have any pets right now or kids, so we can easily travel. I've had pets before. An amazing dog I had for years, and he was such an awesome pet that it was easy to find people to want to take care of him. But that's not always the case. So you're a few weeks out, maybe a month and a half, and you're like, okay, who can help me with my house and my pets possibly. So start asking people, start game planning that, figuring out what you got to do. House plants, I have a number of house plants, and I don't get house plants that need to be watered every other day because they would die. I try to get house plants that are good for a week at a time. That way if I'm gone for 2 weeks, I can have someone come by once in the middle of the trip, water my house plants, and be done. But some people, I love house plants. I love agriculture and horticulture. So they're important for me. Might not be a concern for you, but something to consider as well. Valuables, this can range very greatly. What we did is we have a master bathroom and there's a closet attached to it. I put a deadbolt on it. And so whenever we leave, I take all my valuables and put them in our master bedroom closet with a deadbolt. I deadbolt it. I take the key with me or hide it somewhere. And then I put motion sensor cameras. I think they're Blink cameras, I'm not sure. But I have 2 motion detection cameras that I put in my closet. And that way, if someone wants to get into my location in my house where I have valuables, they have to not only break through a deadbolt, the second they open that door, there's motion detection. So something worth considering. We also have a home security system, which you might want to get as well. I'm not sure if I mentioned that in another upcoming slide, but we have a home security system, and it's honestly, it's great. We rent our house out when we travel. We attempt to Airbnb. So, like I mentioned before in Italy, like when we go on a trip to stay somewhere, someone's coming to our home on a trip to stay at our house. So it can actually be amazing. I think when we did our Italy trip, we made like $2,000 while we were gone renting our house out. It's a luxury. It might not be something you can do, but if you can, consider it. It does make the process way more stressful. Um, in Italy, I'm emailing back and forth the person staying in our house. You can't figure out our security system. But it can really help your money go a lot farther, but it can also add stress. But keep it in mind. Maybe while you're on vacation, you rent your house out and it'll pay for some of your trip. It can be useful. But the security system that we have is nice. It has a camera on the front doorbell, so I can see people that come to the house. I can see when people arrive. Every door, the window that's opened, I can see when and where. If the door is left open, if it's left unlocked, I can see it all. It's like $40 a month for the service. And if there's an issue, if no one's here at all and we're in a different country, someone breaks in, there's a monitoring system. They'll call me. It's just another way to reduce your anxiety, to know that you kind of have a distant set of eyes on your house. You can log into your app from anywhere in the world and see what's going on in your house. I can adjust the temperature, the thermostat, leveraging technology to really reduce my anxiety. It's very valuable, and it might be more valuable if you do, Airbnb or HomeAway rentals as well. So now that your home, your residence is taken care of essentially, call your credit card companies. If you don't tell your credit card company that you're going to a new country, your card won't work. It'll be assumed that it's a fraudulent charge. So you have to contact all of your credit card companies that you're taking with you and tell them, I'm going to be in this country from this date to this date. I have a layover in this country on this date. So please, put the travel notification in so that my credit cards work, because you want access to money. I promise that. And credit cards, when it comes to traveling, I think are the best way to spend money. So I recommend 2 credit cards and maybe a debit. You probably have cash advance on your credit cards. When I take credit cards, I have one on me always, and I stash one somewhere else. And when I'm at my hotel, I'll put one credit card in the safe and one on me, along with some cash in the safe and some cash on me. And I might bring a debit card as well, just because I get a little OCD about money. I like making sure I have money available to me at all times. Because even when you do everything that is correct to make sure this is the case, you might not have access to money. So you never know what you're going to encounter when you're traveling. And having money and financial security ability is a very, very useful thing. And then, you're getting close 2-3 weeks out, start getting healthy. I mean, I think Americans especially, we downplay health. We don't eat healthy. We eat preservatives. We eat food that has a lot of sugar in it, and sugar kills, bottom line. So start getting healthy. See if you need vaccinations. And this might be something that you want to do, maybe months out. Check into your vaccinations. I probably should have put this in the previous slide, because some vaccinations are 4 to 6 weeks out. But look into vaccinations. There's a link right here, vaccinations.gov. There's a lot of debate about the validity and usefulness of vaccinations. I am not an anti-vaxxer, so to speak, but I'm also not just like a vax nut. Like, give me all your vaccinations. I don't believe in that. I think humans have an incredibly complex and incredibly intelligent system, and we don't need most vaccinations. But there are some countries you go to that there are still a lot of illnesses that could be transmitted by mosquitoes or drinking water. You want to know this. You don't want dengue fever in South America because you didn't get your vaccination. So do your research, check this link out, and see if you need any vaccinations. Most of the time you don't. If you're going to Asian countries, African countries, and some Latin American countries, you do. So be aware, it's important. And then, of course, exercise, eat healthier, boost your immune system. The value of exercising and eating healthy in a consistent manner trumps everything else. I don't care what supplements you take. I don't care what vaccinations you have. If you're not exercising regularly and eating healthy regularly, you're not maximizing your health. And you're going to go on a trip, you're going to inundate your body with a number of different illnesses and bacteria that you've never been exposed to in your entire life. And if your immune system's strong, you have a much better chance of defeating those illnesses. And if it's weak, good luck. So get healthy. It's mandatory. Luggage check time. All right, how much do you really need? Like, it's easy to pack too much. It's frustrating to pack too little. How much do you really need though? Do you need a check bag? For most guys, no, you don't. For most women, no, you don't. But women in general need more luggage. So what I do with me and my wife is that if I can talk her into not having a checked bag, we're good. But a lot of times we'll compromise and say, let's take one checked bag, right? And that can help because one checked bag can allow us to buy souvenirs and put a lot of the non-necessities in there. So if it does get lost, we have all of our valuables with us. And usually most of the flights that you pick, will probably have one checked luggage included in the fare. And if that's the case, and you're not backpacking, you're not traveling too much, bringing a check bag can be a luxury, really. But I try to avoid them at all costs. Usually, I have two items here: the carry-on, the overhead, and then the small item. My small item isn't a purse, obviously. It's a backpack, and my carry-on is. It's actually not even a carry-on; it's a backpack too. We bought these amazing backpacks at Nordstrom Rack. Stupid good deal. Maybe I'll post a link here later, but they're perfect backpacking travel bags. But I can get away with everything. Now, granted, it's a pain in the butt when you have to carry two backpacks on you when you're traveling. It can be a burden. So you gotta plan your trade-off. If you're going to places like Europe, where they have cobblestone streets, when we were in Florence, Italy, they had giant foot square cobblestones, and rolling your luggage on that a mile is a pain in the ass. Click, clack, 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 the non-stop for 25-30 minutes. So, be strategic. Use packing cubes. We got a set of packing cubes for Christmas from my, I guess, sister-in-law. And they're awesome. They're perfect. They save so much space. They help compartmentalize all of our items, which is really good for efficiency and organization. Helps reduce clutter, helps you understand, what you have and what you need, and kind of eliminate any uncertainty. And, going back to my overhead backpack, it's, spend the money on a killer overhead. The small item can be a cheap backpack. Mine is, my wife's is. But the overhead itself, I have dimensions there that are relatively standardized. There are some slight differences in airlines and what they accept. There are some differences in planes, of course, what they accept. But do your research, find something that's a good overhead, and then find something that's a good carry-on, and chances are you'll be fine. What you really lose when you pack less is the amount of clothes that you have at your disposal. When I travel, I buy clothes, so I add to my clothing almost every trip that I go to. And I don't pack as much, which means I have to do more laundry more frequently. And doing laundry can be kind of a pain in the ass. But, on any given 2-week trip, because that's our average, that's the most amount of time my wife can get off of work without it being an issue. The average 2-week trip, I'll pack enough clothes for 5 or 6 days. So that means end of the first week I got to do laundry, and then about midway through the second week I got to do laundry again, and then I have enough to get me home. So we generally do 2 laundry loads for every 2 weeks, which is accommodating. You plan it out well. You look at your laundry places at certain hotels. You get your maybe you look at your hotel on days 5 and 6 of your trip and pick one by a laundry station or one that has laundry. So you can just kind of work it into your trip without it being an obstacle or an outlier event that is a burden for you. Of course, weather is your biggest factor. So you've already done your due diligence on the season, the time of year you're going, where you're going, what to expect. Pack for extremes. Even if the weather where you're going is perfect for you, Realize that on that plane, when you're at altitude, when you're 30,000 feet over the ocean, it's negative 50 degrees outside. And of course, the airplane has heat, but it doesn't mean it's going to always be warm. And vice versa. I've had flights where we're flying over the Arctic Circle essentially, and the sun is beating on the plane so intensely that and I'm on the window because I like the window seat. I'm like overheating, and it's negative 50 or 60 degrees outside, but the heat from the sun on the metal on the fuselage is cooking me. So you could be on the tarmac and it could be cold as hell where you're at. And then when you land, you could be in a tropical location. I've gotten on a plane in Reno, Tahoe, where it's 10 degrees outside and snowing, and I'm all geared up for midwinter weather, and I'm going to a place where it's 80 degrees out, and I get off the plane and I'm dressed like an Eskimo. I got to strip down and change immediately into my board shorts and flip flops. So pack for extremes. You know, make sure that you have everything covered. Usually, I have like an airplane set of clothes, like my flight clothes, and then I have my trip clothes, and I keep them separate. Use small bags to compartmentalize items. Like I'll have my backpack, my small item, and then I'll have like my bathroom bag in there, and then I'll have a small packing cube to have like food. Then I'll have another small packing cube to have like some clothes or a jacket. And then I'll have like a water bottle. So when you use the packing cubes and you compartmentalize things, it kind of helps just keep it all more situated and organized. And when it comes to anxiety and remembering, did I have this? Did I have that? Did I have that? When you do this, for me, my anxiety is reduced because I know, well, that's my clothes packing cube. I have like, 4 t-shirts, a button-up shirt, 5 pairs of boxers, and 5 pairs of socks. And this is my bathroom bag, and it has all my bathroom necessities, which we'll go over here, I think, in a few slides. So use small bags, use packing cubes, compartmentalize. I don't recommend just throwing everything into your luggage. It's just too messy. Generally, I always bring more than I need, and I usually regret it. It's a fine line, so just keep that in mind. Usually, you won't bring too little. Usually, especially if you have anxiety, you're going to over prepare. It'll get better with time, but that's just for me. Do you have room for souvenirs? You should buy souvenirs. I recommend it. I always buy a knickknack for myself and a couple things for either someone who's taking care of my house or someone close to me. So leave room for souvenirs. You'll learn that as you go. What type of souvenirs and how much room, and then also a power adapter converter. Not all outlets are the same. Obviously, in the U.S. we have our style of outlet with two vertical prongs and then the round ground. It's different in Europe. It's different in Asia. It's different in Australia. You need the converter to at least plug in, so you can plug in your items into the new outlet. But most of the outlets in other countries are 220 volt, whereas ours are 110 volt in the U.S. Now, many items have a little sticker on it, like your phone charger, or I don't know, whatever. It has a sticker that says 110V/220V. That means it can automatically convert the voltage. Not all things have that. Our first night in Rome, we blew up our steamer. We had like a little clothes steamer that we brought to keep our wedding clothes not wrinkled, to de-wrinkle our wedding clothes. We plug it in, within 6 seconds that thing was smoking and it was done. We fried it because the 220 voltage went into that machine. It didn't have a built-in converter, and then it was ready for 110 and we fried it. Blow dryers are notorious for doing this. We popped circuit breakers in Bali because my wife had her blow dryer on high, and not only did she fry her blow dryer, she blew the fuse in the actual unit we were staying in. So a power adapter that'll allow you to plug in, your American good product to an outlet in a different country goes for about 15-20 bucks. A converter, which will convert the voltage from 110 to 220 and back, goes for about 50 to 70 bucks. And the converter usually does both. So I bought a $60 power converter. It does both, and I highly recommend it because you can take your appliances with you and you don't have to worry about anything else. So keep that in mind. Buy a converter, adapter at the very least. You can get an adapter anywhere. Converters are hard to get, but make sure you have that in your luggage and you'll have everything you need. So now your day's out, right? You got your luggage check, you have your overhead, you have your personal item, you have your documentation, your passport, your international driver's permit, right? You have someone taking care of your house for you. You have all the main things taken care of. Now we're getting down to the nitty gritty. Um, Doing laundry, like I mentioned, I about once a week I'll do laundry on my trip. Seems to work for us. Having specialty flight items, like I said, the flight can be an anxiety trigger for most people. So I like to be as comfortable and prepared for my flight as I can be because it reduces my anxiety and it gives me a sense of comfort and security. Long flights over 8-10 hours, anything over 10 hours for sure. Compression socks, they're $10 a pair. You know what they do is when you sit for a long period of time, anything over 10-12 hours especially, the blood will pool to your feet, right? Gravity does its job, and the blood will pool to your feet. Your ankles will get swollen. Your feet can get swollen. I've seen people's feet get swollen before, to where they couldn't get their shoes on. Like right, they take their shoe off to just lay on the flight and go to sleep. Wake up 6 hours later, time to get to our destination. Go to put their shoes on, and their feet are so swollen they can't get their boots on. Seriously, they didn't wear their compression socks. So I recommend a pair, at least one pair for compression socks while you're flying. It'll help you. Worst case scenario, you can get a blood clot and die. I mean, it's very, very rare, but sitting for long periods of time can cause this. Compression socks can prevent this. Loose loose clothing for flights is a big deal. I mean, I don't like wearing tight clothes in general. Maybe if you wear like yoga pants, that's a different story. But for your flight, you want to be comfortable. You want to dress for the trip. Like I said, I have my flight clothes and then I have my trip clothes. The temperature can vary dramatically on the plane, on the tarmac. Dress for variability. Have one set of clothes, like layerable, that you can kind of customize for the trip. It might be hot in the tarmac. You have, pants on that are comfortable. You have a t-shirt. You have like a light sweater or fleece. Then you have an overcoat, right? And as you adapt to the climate in the plane, you can take a coat off, you can store it, you can do this and that. Allow yourself to be able to handle numerous different temperatures and environments while you're on your flight. Dress for success, dress to be prepared. When I started traveling, I started bringing comfort items with me. That's a little horseshoe pillow that you can put around your neck. I think on the way back from Costa Rica at the Houston airport, I bought a travel pillow that zips. It's a little pillow that zips open to be a longer pillow. And I've had that for years. I still have it. I don't use it, but in the first 5 or 6 years of flying, that was my comfort item. I had my little pillow. I wash it before every trip. I take it with me, on my flight. I have my little comfort pillow. Worst case scenario, I get to my hotel. It's not a clean room. I feel that it's dirty. I don't like the pillows. I have my little pillow I can use. You might have a blanket. Seriously, I mean, remember, we're dealing with anxiety here. You're already going out of your comfort zone. You're taking big steps. You're challenging yourself. You're facing your fears. Have a little comfort pillow. Have something that reminds you of home. Have something that's yours. So no matter where you are, you can take it out and you have your sense of security. It's like a blankie for a baby. And seriously, and I'm not trying to make us look like infants, but it helps. It helps us with feeling good about ourselves and being prepared and comfortable. So I recommend a nice flight pillow. There's a bunch out there. Do your research because the prices can vary significantly, and so can the functionality. They're not all horseshoe pillows, I promise. And then finally, some last few things I highly recommend you having. At the very least, get a set of earplugs. They're 50 cents. You're gonna want them. The hum of the plane is constant. It never goes anywhere. If you're in the front of the fuselage, you don't have as much noise. If you're behind the turbines or on the wing, you have a lot of consistent, deep humming, and it can be uncomfortable. So earplugs can at least just drown everything out. You have babies crying, potentially. You have a loud passenger, whatever it may be. Get earplugs at the very least. Get a face mask, so if you want to sleep, You can block off, any ambient light. It could be the middle of the night and everyone's sleeping, and you're trying to sleep, but the person in the seat next to you or in front of you has their reading light on, and that ambient light, even with your eyes closed, can distract you, keep you awake, interrupt your sleep cycle. If you can't sleep on a plane, it can be very valuable because you can set your jet lag. You can kind of minimize it if you can sleep and get your time, your personal clock adjusted early. But if you can't, it just makes you that much more groggier and your jet lag that much more disruptive. And one step further from the earplugs, get noise reducing headphones. They're amazing. Usually the headphones they give you on a plane are garbage. And noise reducing headphones, I have two pair. At the very least, they'll help drown out the ambient noise. They'll help keep you quiet and relatively comfortable. But when you're also watching in-flight entertainment, listening to music, they'll drown out all the ambient noise of the hum of the turbines, as well as enhance the sound of your music or your movie. I highly recommend them. The really good pairs are like $300. They're worth it if you can afford it. I don't own those because I just haven't had the money to buy a pair. I have ones that are like $50. Not as good, but they're great. Compared to what you get on the plane, it's a day and night difference, and they help. They really do. So look into that. These are all things that you're gonna want to purchase for sure, especially to help with your anxiety. Gonna want compression socks. Gonna want a comfort pillow. Gonna want earplugs, face masking if you can afford it. Noise reducing headphones. You're chipping away at everything, and your flight's booked, right? Let's just say your flight's booked by now, and you have everything prepared, your documentation, and your a lot of your knickknacks, travel goods. Print everything out. I do this for a couple reasons. One, I do an itinerary, one pager that summarizes the entire trip. I have flight numbers, hotel confirmation numbers, all the details that I need, the times, just so that I have something to, give to myself or my travel buddies that summarizes the entire trip. Also, what I like to do with this itinerary is give it to friends or family before I leave. So just to feel comfortable, and just for my dad's still alive, and when I go on international trips, he gets a little nervous because he never traveled much. So I'll say, here, Dad, here's an itinerary. This is our itinerary for Thailand. Here's an itinerary, Dad. This is where we're going to be. This is where we're going to be at. When we're going to be here. Who I'm going to be with. And it's just, if something goes wrong, it's just like you have someone that can help you. Chances are you don't know someone in the country that you're going to. You might, but you probably don't. It's good to have someone back home that knows where you're going to be when you're going to be there. Something could happen, 9/11, when that happened, the twin trade towers, that grounded flights for a week, or something like that, something crazy. Everything stopped. If you're on your trip and something like that happens, it's good to know that someone knows where you're at, right? And then I'll print out all my hotel confirmation sheets with the confirmation number, all the pertinent details, and most importantly, the address of the hotel in the language of the country I'm going to. Chances are you'll get off the plane. You might not have a prearranged shuttle ride to your hotel, so you'll have to be using taxis. Chances are there'll be a essentially taxi help kiosk where one person speaks multiple languages. Then you can tell them, I'm going here. They'll find the driver for you. They'll tell the driver in their language where to go, and then they'll take you there. That's not always the case. Having that information in the local language, you can find a taxi cab driver, so there's no one to assist you. Find a cab driver, show them on the paper the address in their language, and they know where to go. You can also say this to your phone. That way you can show them your phone. You might not feel as comfortable giving a stranger your phone, but it's usually fine. Or your phone might be out of batteries. You don't know, right? Speaking of phone batteries, I always bring a power, an extra battery, remote battery, whatever you call it. So if I can't power my phone up, I have like a spare battery charger. You might want to consider that as well. You can get them pretty cheap. It's just I've never actually needed to use it. I just carry it with me, so I know if my phone battery dies, I have like a battery backup I can plug in just in case. But whatever. It's good to print out as well because I print everything out. I'll print out rental car confirmations. I'll print out any attractions. Like when we went to Italy, we took the ferry a couple times. I printed out the ferry information and the booking confirmation. When you book events, trips, whatever, just print everything out, put it in a folder, put it somewhere on your trip, you got it. And if you do it right, you'll never need it. But, well, like I said, this course is centered around defeating travel anxiety. So I'm here to tell you all the things that I do to help reduce the anxiety element. And by having everything on my trip, having my summary itinerary given to friends and family, and then having my trip printed out with me in local languages to help me get around in case I lose my phone or whatever, is a big comfort factor for me. And I recommend you do it too because it'll help you understand your trip better, make sure your dates are all appropriate, and then you have your confirmation number if something goes wrong. So, worth thinking about. I suggest doing it. So, we're getting close now. We've gotten so much ready for this trip. Now we're a few days out. If you take prescriptions, make sure you have ample prescriptions. I don't have any prescriptions, neither does my wife. But if you're taking any, make sure you have an ample amount. Anywhere you go, there's going to be a pharmacy. And in many countries, the pharmacies are more lenient with their drugs than that of the US. And what I mean by that is a lot of countries, you go into a pharmacy with an issue, with an ailment, and you'll tell the pharmacist what your issue is, and then they'll recommend you what they think's the best. So essentially, they cut out the doctor middleman. Like you don't have to go to an urgent care center and then get a prescription and take it to the pharmacy. It's a one-stop shop, and that's how most countries are that I've seen. So rest assured, any relatively common prescription you're taking, you can get elsewhere. It might not be the same exact producer, manufacturer. So if you have prescriptions, especially if you have serious health issues, bring enough. Tell your doctor you're taking a 2-week international trip. You're nervous about it. You want to ensure you have what you need, and you want extra just in case. I highly recommend it, especially if you have a serious condition. Now, there are a handful of what I consider necessary over-the-counter drugs, and I'm a pretty natural person. I don't really take anything, aside from healthy food and exercise and a handful of cocktails every now and again. But when I travel, I have my go-to half a dozen I have to have. And we'll go through them step by step. And I recommend you get all of these 100%. And just don't even think about it. Just get them. Melatonin. Melatonin is a natural compound that is in our brain that helps with sleep regulation and helps us feel drowsy. If you go to bed every night at 10 o'clock and then one night you stay up till 11 and you start feeling really tired, that's because your melatonin's kicking in because it's trying to get you to go to sleep and help regulate your sleep, and it's forcing you to go to sleep. Now, you can buy melatonin pills that supplement your natural melatonin, and it can be incredibly useful for jet lag. And what they say about jet lag, what I've been reading about it, trying to get a better understanding of it all, is that if you want to eliminate your jet lag, the best thing to do is the minute you get on that flight, adjust your watch or your clock to the time of where you're going, and then do what you would normally do for that time period. So, for example, you get on a plane at midnight and you're flying to Italy, and it's 7 a.m. in Italy. Yeah, basically 8 a.m. in Italy. So if it's midnight, you're probably ready to go to sleep, but where you're going is 8 a.m. So you want to push through it and stay awake the entire time, and you're trying to stay awake for 24 hours, which is like sleep deprivation to some extent. But that's what they say. Now that's kind of extreme, and that's why going from west to east is a little harder, I think, with the jet lag because you're essentially like losing time, I think. But if you're doing it, say you need to go to sleep instead of stay awake, the melatonin can help you kick in your sleep triggers to get you going to sleep. So melatonin can be super useful. And if you're having trouble sleeping while you're on your trip, say your body's still adjusting to the time difference, melatonin can be used to supplement your natural melatonin to get you sleeping faster and help you get your body regulated to the new time zone that you're in. Saline nasal spray. So one of the biggest issues I have when I travel is that my sinus cavity gets dried out on the flight. And when your sinus cavity gets dry, it can lead to a number of different illnesses. It can drop your immune system, and you can actually get bacteria in your sinus and nasal cavity that wouldn't be able to survive in a moist area. So, nasal spray. Every hour or two on a long flight, I'm hitting my nose with nasal spray, and it keeps my sinuses moist. It keeps them from drying out. And honestly, this is like my number one thing I have to have when I fly, because once my sinuses get dried out, I've had sinus infections so bad, especially flying back from Barcelona. I couldn't. It hurt to breathe. Like, it hurt to literally breathe. So I had to go back and forth between breathing in my nose and then breathing in my mouth, because it hurt so bad to breathe in through my nose. I couldn't do it. So I'd like go nose mouth, nose mouth, nose mouth, and I was just a mess. My stomach hurt. And that this point, I didn't have saline nasal spray, so I used like not even Vaseline, like A&D ointment in my nose to try to coat my nose, because I was so uncomfortable. And having nasal spray just helps just keep your sinuses and your nasal cavity moist. I highly recommend it. Of course, keep the nozzle always clean. Benadryl. Benadryl is an antihistamine. If you have an allergic reaction, Benadryl can help immediately stave it off. I recommend having it. I'm not allergic to anything really that I know of, but when you're traveling, you're exposing yourself to all kinds of new stuff, environmental contaminants, flowers, foods. I always take Benadryl in case someone has an allergic reaction on our trip. Imodium AD, yeah, this is a lifesaver. Hopefully you never need it. Chances are you're going to need it eventually. Diarrhea can ruin your trip. I know that sounds horrible and disgusting, but diarrhea is usually just a bacterial contamination of your intestinal tract, your GI tract, while you're traveling, and it can happen incredibly, incredibly easy. Imodium AD will help stop diarrhea. Basically, it takes what would be diarrhea and clumps it up like cat litter. I know it's a little grotesque and disgusting, but it's true. Bring Imodium AD or buy it as soon as you get there. The first onset of diarrhea, take it. I start with half of an Imodium AD as to not overdo it, but you want this. It's a lifesaver. The last thing you want is diarrhea for 3-4 days in a different country. You can't be comfortable in where you go. You can't predict your bowel movements, and you're dehydrated. Diarrhea dehydrates you. So bring Imodium. Just bring it. Don't even question it. And the minute someone gets diarrhea, give it to them. Hand sanitizer. This is another huge one. Planes are disgusting. We'll go into that later. Hand sanitizer, you use it to keep your hands clean, right? I don't want to go too into detail because I talk about it, I think, the next lesson, but bring hand sanitizer because you're going to use it a lot. And then finally, emergency and airborne. Like I said, you're exposed to so many new bacterias and germs and environments while you're traveling. You should have been, if you're following my instruction, exercising, eating healthy, being more healthy than normal, to boost your immune system. But you also want to do the supplemental emergency and airborne as well, just so you have the maximum amount of vitamins and minerals. It's important to stay hydrated when you're traveling so you can flush out all the germs and bacteria that are being introduced into your system. Emergency will help that, but you just want to stay hydrated and drink emergency or airborne. That way you keep your immune system boosted and you can process everything. Of course, if you have a condition that's, individual to yourself, take what you need. This is not an exhaustive list of everything that you could possibly want. This is just I have to have these 6 things in order to feel confident traveling internationally. And I recommend that you take all of these too, and then whatever else you might need, better than anybody else, bring it, bring ample. And don't feel bad if you overpurchase these things, because these are things that are right in line with your health and well-being. So don't skimp. just get them. Couple of final thoughts. I know we've gone through some pretty good detail about what you want to bring on your trip and how you want to organize it and all these things. Cash money, right? I mean, it's so critical. I always bring cash with me, and I rarely use it, honestly. But I always use some of my cash. I never use all of it. Sometimes I'll use half of it, but bring it. I used to bring $2,000, $3,000 in cash everywhere I went, and it was too much to manage. I never used any of it. So $1,000 should be more than sufficient. It's kind of emergency money. Like you're gonna want cash, and maybe you bring a debit card. You can get cash out of your ATM. Maybe you can get a cash advance on your credit card. But I like having just hard cash because you might not get to an ATM, or I've had credit cards not work in other countries that were supposed to work, so you just don't know. So bring cash, hide it in separate locations. I'll do a few $100 in my wallet, maybe put the rest like in a book in my luggage, or split it up, put it in my sunglass case, something like that. But I always have cash on me. It's just for my anxiety, running out of money is a big trigger, and I avoid it at all costs. So I have like $1,000 cash and two credit cards and a debit card, and you know that's not that much. I'm not rolling with 10 grand and 15 credit cards, but for me, that's plenty of money to work with what I need without having it be ridiculously, excessive. When you arrive, leave your money, leave one of your credit cards or your credit and your debit card, whatever, and your passport in your hotel. Get some local currency too. The minute I get to a new country and I get to the airport, I'll grab money. And I don't really scrutinize the exchange rate fluctuations here. If they're going to hit me on 4 points fee versus 5%, doesn't really matter. But the minute I land, I'll take $100 and I'll get local currency. And I always usually spend it. And one thing I've done at every one of my trips, I like taking mementos, souvenirs. Every country I go to, I bring home some money, like $5-10 worth. But it's local currency, whether it's Costa Rican, whatever, it's colones or euros or whatever, Taiwanese dollars, whatever their currency is. I bring it, and I always make it a point to have like one nice, clean, crisp bill of the country I just went to for my own little personal knickknacks. You might want to, you might not, doesn't matter. But I always get local currency so that I can buy like drink and food and street snacks, which will go over, the sanitation elements of street snacks, but cab rides, whatever. Get some cash. We're talking about traveling with anxiety here. This will reduce your anxiety, I promise. Like an instance in Italy, we rented the car. Oh my God. Rented the car, and, we drove for a day or two, then it was time to get gas, and we're up in like Florence, Tuscany area. Go to get gas, and I have multiple good credit cards. So does my wife. She has credit cards that are working and functioning. For whatever reason, we couldn't get gas. We went to 3 different gas stations, spent 45 minutes. None of our credit cards would work. And it wasn't just us too. Like we'd be sitting at a gas station trying to get gas, and there's like 4 people at the gas, credit card machine trying to get gas for their, whatever number gas station they're on, pump they're on. And there's like me and like 3 other people going, is it working for you? No. Is it working for you? No. And none of us could get our cards to work. And we'd drive to the next gas station and someone would follow us and try it there. It wouldn't work. We don't know what it was. It could be a number of things, but it didn't work. And we spent 45 minutes and went to 3 different gas stations. And it was a Sunday, and there was no one working at the kiosk. Like these were supposed to be like convenience stores, and they were all closed because it was Sunday. So I'm getting nervous and stressed out and frustrated. We had to get some cash because the machines took cash. So you just never know. Have cash. Always have cash on you. If having a lot of money is a concern of yours, just take what you need, but always bring some cash. And then get in your head right, because you're getting close to your trip. You spent months now. You got thousands of dollars invested or that you're going to spend, and you're a day or two away. I mean, you're a week within your trip, and you're probably a nervous wreck because you have travel anxiety and you're doing this big trip and you don't know what to expect, but you've done your due diligence and your trip's well thought out, and you know where you're staying, and yeah, it's the framework down, so you can feel confident that you checked off, your to-do list. Just relax. You've taken care. If you listened to me and you've done what I've said, you have 95% of everything you need to have done. Don't panic. I've had nights before trips, especially the trip to Indonesia, where it was a 34-hour flight and staying overnight in Taiwan and having to wake up at 4 in the morning to catch our flight. I don't think I slept more than 2 hours. And I let myself get stressed out. Did I take care of this? Did I take care of that? The volcano's gonna blow up, blah 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 blah. I gotta stay the night in Taiwan, take a cab, all these things. Just let it go. Just let it go. Just You're gonna be fine. Remember, if you don't go on this trip, what's gonna happen? What if? Doesn't matter. So just relax. You've done what you need to do. It's time to get excited now. Don't worry, get excited. And when push comes to shove and your anxiety's getting the better of you and you're freaking out and you're I'm sure you're contemplating just not going, you're thinking of all the reasons that you're not going to go on this trip and what could happen here and what could happen there, and it's a lot of money, and what happens if this happens when you're gone, and what happens at your job while you're gone, and all this just garbage and nonsense and just random thoughts attacking your psyche. Take the Jeff Bezos approach, right? Jeff Bezos is the founder of Amazon. He had a fairly comfortable life in, I think, New York as a financial advisor or something like that before he started Amazon. He saw an opportunity. He saw the internet was going to blow up. He knew he needs to leverage the internet technology to sell goods, right? He was going back and forth with the entire idea with his wife. And then he came to this conclusion. He said, I knew that if I failed, right, if he tried to build Amazon and he failed, he wouldn't regret failing. But he knew the one thing he might regret is not even trying. If you don't take this trip, you have all this work and energy into it, and you let your mind defeat you, you're not going to regret taking the trip and having a shitty experience. You're going to regret chickening out. Because remember, every time you chicken out, you carve deeper into your brain that channel, that thought process, and you reinforce that you're a chicken and you can't do it. Don't do that. Have no regrets. Again, remember, not traveling enough is one of the biggest regrets for people. Consistently, I challenge you, type in right now, Google search, what do people regret the most in life? Right? There's been numerous studies where people go to elderly people, end-of-life people, 70s, 80s, 90s, and they say, well, you've lived a full life. What is it you regret the most? There's a number of obvious big ones, like, not telling the people I love them enough, not doing more charity work, right? Volunteer work is one of them. Top 5, always not traveling enough. Not always, 95% of the time, top 5, not traveling enough. Don't have that regret. Don't look back even a year from now and say, oh, I had a trip to Spain planned, but I didn't take it because I chickened out like I did. I was lucky enough. I was able to, make up for that and get my Spain trip in 4 years later. But you might not have that. I might not have that next year. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So don't have the regret of not traveling enough. Don't reinforce that channel in your brain that says, I can't go, I'm scared. Have no regrets. You don't know what tomorrow may bring. Seize the opportunity. Start conquering and controlling your anxiety and start a new chapter in your life right now. A chapter of success, courage, confidence, and commitment. And I promise you, not only will this be an amazing adventure, this mentality is going to spill out into the rest of your life. And you're going to be able to adopt this I can do it attitude to more things than you can imagine. Well, that's it for lesson 4. It's fairly detailed, but it gets you ready for your trip, right? Your macros figured out, your trip's planned out, booked if not scheduled to the exact day. Now you have your preparation ready. You have your months out planned out. You have your important documents, your weeks out, your days out. Everything's taken care of. Everything's printed out. You gave a friend or family member your itinerary so someone at home knows where you're going to be at. You pack smart. You didn't overpack, you didn't underpack. You packed for variability. You packed for multiple climates. Packed for your flight, which is important to be comfortable. And your head's ready. There's not much else you need to do. Like I said, if you listened to what my instructions are and you go through the process, there's nothing to be concerned about. You know, the only thing on the other side of that flight is your adventure and you're enjoying it. So you've done your due diligence. You're ready to go. Again, be excited, be happy, no regrets. The moment your brain starts saying worst case scenario, what if, what if, what if, flip it to best case scenario. Flip it again, sexy case scenario. You're going to have fun. This is going to be the trip of your dreams. It's all going to go great. Whatever happens that is a curveball or something that you didn't plan happen, you're going to manage it accordingly. Trust yourself, trust your judgment, trust the world, trust God or whatever it is you believe in. It's going to be fine. This is what you're supposed to do. This is where you're supposed to be. Do it. Be happy. Be excited. Again, time for homework. Pretty basic stuff. You can probably guess it all. Start getting everything ready. Get your passport, get your insurance, get your international driver's permit, get a list of your luggage needs, buy your necessary luggage, and print everything out and do your breathing exercises. Again, 10 breaths in, 10 breaths out, in through the nose, out through the mouth. Fill up all three of your air chambers. Meditate. It's going to help you out. You got everything taken care of. You're fine. There's only a couple days left, if that, and it's going to be great. You're breaking down barriers and breaking through walls, and you should be happy about it.